you guys. Welcome, welcome. This is Tamiya Robles. I am the host of this podcast, Adoption Exposed, the Black Orphaned Adopted Foster Child podcast. Welcome, welcome. And in case you're wondering, yes, that is me. I was or was all of those things at some point. I'm still black though. I'm still black. That never changed. But yeah, so I want to say thank you guys for having patience with me. I know I neglected this podcast and I'm sincerely apologetic because this does mean a lot to me. But like I stated in the last podcast, the last episode, I am going to do everything in my power to make it up to you. And that's what led me to this particular episode. This is specifically a heavy topic. This is a major topic when it comes to adoptions, not just for the adoptive parents, but potentially the adoptees. But mostly this weighs heavy on the adoptive parents because it's their decision, their choice to say whether or not they're going to let their child know that they were adopted. So as you can see, the title, To Tell or Not to Tell, Family Secrets Revealed. I specifically made this title read like this. So not only is it eye catching, but so you can understand this is real. This is a thing. In certain cases, this really is a family secret. It can be the adoptive child could be considered the secret. So I wanted just to get into that from different angles. Before I start though, please be sure to like, and not just like my shit, but comment. I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? I see people liking, listening, downloading, even from different parts of the world. And I thank you so much for listening. I thank you so much for hearing and being involved. But I really need for you guys to give me some sort of insight. Even if you're not an adoptee or an adoptive parent, just let me know what you think. And if you are in particular, definitely, I would love to hear your story. But anywho, let me just get into it now. In case you don't already know my story, my mother told me at a very early age that I was adopted. Dad was around. I definitely did have a two-parent household, but it was mostly mom, like in most cases, right? So I was in the car with both of my parents. I think I was like 4. I say 4 because I was in their Honda, their Honda Accord from the 80s, and my feet didn't hang off the back seat or anything. I was very small. I clearly remember that. So I'm just assuming I was like 3 or 4. And I asked my mom, what did it look like in her stomach? And, if you want to hear the details of that, just definitely check out the other podcasts, the other episodes. I explain exactly how that went. But the point is, my mother was very open. My parents were very open about it. My dad never, ever, ever, ever really talked much about my adoption. I don't know if it's a guy thing. Like, I think that like once they accept you, and there's like no need for the back and forth. So no need for the dialogue to keep talking about it. I don't know. Or maybe it was just my pop. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it was just my dad. But it was never a thing. Like you can talk to him about it. He'll talk to you and he'll give you whatever information you want. But ultimately that wasn't a thing for him. I didn't confide in my father about how I felt about adoption or anything. It was just like, whatever, sis. Like, whatever. Do you? I'm here if you need me. So a lot of my energy with that came from my mother. It was her and I talked about it whenever I chose to speak on it. This was not a thing in my household. This wasn't a main topic of conversation. This was not on the forefront of anyone's mind in my whole entire family, both sides, that I'm an adopted kid, because how I was raised is just, you're ours, you belong to us. It is what it is. But the reality is I was adopted. Okay. And there was some point in my life where the adoption process happened. And I never actually talked to my mom about this. And this would have been a great topic. I wish she was alive for me to actually include her on this podcast, but and ask her some of these questions. But I wanted to know, did she ever plan that? Did she think of that in her head before she adopted me? Like, if there comes a time in my child's life where she needs to know, should I tell her or should I ever tell her? Even if she never, should I ever tell my kid that she was adopted. I'm just curious about that. So I've seen people and how to I've seen people and families not tell their kids, and I've also seen families that are constantly telling their kids that they're adopted. And you there it impacts the child a lot, right? It does make a difference. Now, I think if you have already adopted a child and they're young and you haven't quite, they don't know what's left and right, they don't know anything, but you're still on the fence on whether or not you should tell your child. I think you need to just I can only give suggestions, but I think you should always be honest, right? Because if you're a good parent and you're in it for the kid and you want to make sure you have a happy, healthy kid to the best of your parenting abilities, you should always be honest. Now, honesty doesn't mean constantly remind them that they're adopted. It doesn't mean that you introduce your child as the adopted child. Like, as you guys already know, I hate that shit. Like, I think that is the most disrespectful thing you can do. One of the most disrespectful things you could do to your child, right? Why adopt if you're going to announce to the world that you have an adopted child? You're not in it for the kid, you're in it for yourself to make yourself look good or whatever. And that's horrible. That's totally fucked up. But I know some parents, they don't want to tell their kid at all for multiple reasons. It might be because they don't care. They just really don't care. This is their baby and it is what it is. If you know, you know. If you don't, I'm not going to tell you. And I actually know people like that, right? And like, I know that this kid is adopted, whether it was legally or not. You guys know how I feel about that. I know about that, but the kid just has zero clue that their parents are not their biological parents. Kid is happy, healthy, you know what I'm saying, amazing or whatever. But to me, in the back of my mind, if I was an adoptive parent, I would be like, what if they find out though? Like, what if something in life shows its face and it forces this topic to come to surface? Like, what then? What if they find out when they're 50, 40, 20? What if some medical issue happens and you have to address it? What if they decide to do their DNA? Because everybody and their mom is doing their DNA, and then the DNA comes back that we're not related. So, do you tell them or do you not tell them? What do you do? What is your opinion? Please leave some comments. Don't just like my shit. I know I'm good, but just like let me know, right? But on the flip side to that, I've seen families constantly tell their children and their family members and their friends that they adopted a kid and they whether it's one kid, multiple kids, whatever. And it really grinds my gears. It really does. But I don't I've heard so many like adoption stories throughout my life, and on the surface, I'm gonna tell you this as a fellow adopted person, we don't always express how we truly, truly feel deep down inside about being adopted. Mostly, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's just natural. It's natural to us that we're either told we're adopted or don't know that we're adopted or are aware that we're adopted, like myself, and just it really doesn't make a difference. But it's second nature. It's just no big deal. It's just like, how you have to put, your pants on and then you put your shirt on and then you put, like it's just another thing you're aware of in your life. It's no big deal, but how you feel about it, it's so gradual and you're like dealing with it internally, good or bad, for most of your life, I would say, in my opinion, in my strongest opinion. And the reason why I say my strongest opinion is because I have been around a lot of adoptees. When I was trying to find my biological incubator, I was part of a lot of groups where people were adopted and they were searching, and you can hear people's truths. Like they express how they really felt. Like if they knew or they just found out, or they knew and they didn't care, whatever. And it does affect us, but we don't share it. And a lot of times we don't share how we truly feel, especially if we come from a fairly good background. Is we're not trying to hurt our parents' feelings. We're not trying to hurt our parents' feelings. And if we have siblings, we're not trying to hurt their feelings. We don't want them to feel any type of way because we're simply asking some questions and we're dealing with things internally, right? So we have thoughts on how you present this to us. We do have thoughts on it. And even if we don't specifically have a thought on that topic per se, we think about that what it is. Like we think about that topic. Well, I wish they told me. I wish they never told me, or I wish everyone was here to tell me. It's always something around that. So that's why it's really important to figure this out. And if you haven't figured it out and you're already like years and years in as a parent and you had no intention on telling them, this decision is ultimately yours, but consider the child. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't think I shared this example with y'all, but if I did, I apologize. But not everybody heard the story. But when I was in foster care, I was 16 years old and I was living in a city, a small, extremely poor city called Chester, Pennsylvania, which is about 40 minutes south of Philly, right? Now, I love Chester to death because I met a lot of amazing people there that loved me, supported me, and to this day still support me, and I consider them family, right? So there goes that unofficial adoption, right? Because I got nieces and nephews to this day. But anywho, when I was 16, I was just young, wild, ain't really give a fuck about too much of anything. But I was always aware of things. I might not have been able to properly process certain bits of information, or I'd never cared to, but I noticed everything. Like I peep everything. And I was going with this guy and he had a humongous family. I don't even want to say his last name because his family's name is like well known in that town because they have a big family. But and if I say their last name, and if anybody from the area is listening, they will know exactly who I'm talking about. So I'm gonna chill just to protect people's personal information. But anyway, he had a sister, right? He had a big family, and he had, I think it was like all boys and one girl type thing. And his older sister um uh was raising a little girl. So I was 16, and I don't know, let's say she was about 5 years older than me, and she was raising this little beautiful little girl. She was amazing, very respectful. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, for this girl to be such a young single mom, because I wasn't doing the math on it, but I was like, clearly she must have had her at an even younger age, because I think she was like 19 herself. And then she had this boyfriend, and he was so good to this kid, and she called him dad, and then she called the woman mom, right, which was my boyfriend's sister, ex-boyfriend's sister at the time. And it was just beautiful and amazing, and this kid is happy, healthy, and they're, just a beautiful situation. So my ex-boyfriend was like, yeah, that's actually not her daughter and that's actually not her dad. That is my brother's daughter. And his brother, he had multiple brothers, but this particular brother was in jail. He said, that's my brother's daughter. And I don't remember what he said about her biological mother, but whatever the case was, his sister raised her since birth, and they all agreed that she would be considered the mother and be called the mom, and that's what it was, and that's what it will always be. Right? The little girl had no clue that that was not her biological mom. She had no clue that was not her biological father, and everyone in the neighborhood seemed to know, though. And obviously, we don't care because the baby was happy and healthy and all that. Like nobody was hurting or anything. Like there was no need, and it was none of our business. But through time, what is going to happen if you don't tell this child that, hey, I'm not your biological mom, I'm actually your aunt, right? This isn't really your father. This is my boyfriend at the time, and I'm 19, and we've been together since I was 16. Like, what do you do? What do you do? Do you do that, or do you never tell her? Because I'm actually Facebook friends with her. She's a beautiful individual, not the daughter, the mom. And I think the daughter went off to college. She's still a beautiful, happy, healthy adult, right? I don't know if she knows. I didn't check in. Like I said, it's never none of my business. But at the time I saw her as a child, she was already like 5, 6 years old when I came in, when I was introduced to her, and she didn't have a clue. Unlike me, where I knew at a younger age. So I don't know how that goes. And then what do you do? What do you do when if a situation comes up or she decides to ask mom, and then I know she's not with the guy that she considers her father. So like, did it ever get out that that wasn't her father? Like, that's a thing. There's another situation. I'll do you one better, right? So there's this guy I met when I was like 18, 19 years old. Just some random guy, right? And we were cool, never intimate or anything, but we got really cool. And he told me he was a product of rape, right? So his mom introduced like this guy as his dad. So but he always knew he was a product of rape, and that the guy that he called dad was just not really his dad. And the only reason why he knew that is because his mom had such a hatred for his biological father that she basically took it out on him and was like, yeah, that's not your real dad, and you were a product of rape, blah blah blah. Like, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, do you do that to a child? Because as a grown man, this man, he says mom told him ever since he can remember, like as far back, like this isn't really my father. So he looked at men like they ain't shit. Like I don't have a male figure in my life that loves me and cares for me and supports me, because my biological father was a rapist and a pastor at that. And then the guy I want to look up to as a positive male influence, my mom is just constantly reminding me that he is not mine. He is not my biological father. So what do you do, man? What do you do? Because he always knew at an early age, like myself, right? And then he grew up as an adult. There was some sort of like dark cloud to this man. And I don't mean like in an evil way. I mean kind of like in a sad, almost depressing type of way when I met him. Like, he was really nice, very nice man, very respectful. Okay. I don't know about his inner demons, anything like that. That's none of my business. And I just simply wasn't around him long enough to want to know. But I felt like there was just a unspoken sadness in his spirit. And I'm pretty sure it came from them. I can only imagine. I can only imagine, just hearing these truths. Yes, it's the truth. No, this isn't your real father, or quote unquote real father, like, the non adoptees and adoptive people say in the non adoptive community. But like, that has to affect you. It has to affect you. And then this third situation, I believe I told y'all before. Again, this is another ex boyfriend of mine in Philly, and he was from a large family, and his mom had like, I forgot how many kids there are, and that's another large family. Like, if I say the name, you'll probably know who they are. But if you're from the area, but anyway, she had all these kids, and her husband been together for ever. My ex boyfriend was the youngest of all the children, and the father has a very distinctive face. Like, all his kids basically look like him, and for the most part, most of his grandkids did, except for the firstborn. But you don't really think much of it, right? You kind of do, but then you don't, because I know plenty of families where they have the same parents, but some of the kids like maybe one or two of the kids look mad different. You know what I'm saying? And then the kids would tease them like, you don't look like us, you're probably adopted, right? Like that type shit. So I didn't really think anything of it. Nobody thought anything of it. So boom, one day it was Thanksgiving. And we used to always go over his mom and dad's house for the holidays. And he comes busting in. And this is a beautiful family, by the way. Nice, nice, loving family. And this guy was really respectful. And he just found out that he was adopted by his father, and he was the oldest out of all his siblings, but that was not his biological father. This was a grown ass man. Like this dude was like 40, 50 years old when he found out. I don't even remember the story of how he found out. But why would you wait so long? Like what happened? What happened, right? So do you tell? And if you tell, when do you tell? When is the best time to tell your kid that they have been adopted? Okay. And then do you make it a thing? Do you make it a thing? I remember one of my favorite TV shows back in the day was a TV show called Girlfriends. And this one biracial chick was adopted by a black family. No, by a white family, my bad, by a white family. And they did this episode where her sister was like always, she seemed like a culture vulture. Like she was always wearing kente cloth and African clothing, and was like she knew all the hip hop songs and this and the other. And it came off offensive in the beginning, but I think they did that intentionally. But ultimately, when you heard why she did that, it was actually a beautiful thing, right? It was a beautiful thing. But she was reminding her that she came to visit her because it was called I Gotcha Day. So when some parents, before they have babies, they will have a baby shower. And I think I shared that with you guys. My mom had a baby shower after I was born. So that would have been kind of like my mom's I got you day or gotcha day. So basically gotcha day was the day they celebrate her official adoption when she became adopted into the family. I thought that was really sweet. I thought that was really beautiful. However, it's very beautiful, but it goes back to reminding that child, you're not one of us, right? You're not us. Like we love you and everything, and we're so glad that you're family, and you will always be my child, but you're not really blood related because you're adopted. Like you know what I'm saying? And this is the day we got you. We love you though. Like, feel the love on this day. And I respect it. I really do. However, it's just like, why is it a thing when it doesn't have to be a thing? Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be a thing. Now, when I saw, like, my parents always had a photo album, and that was one of my favorite pictures where it was like my mom was cheesing, and then she's holding me because my parents got me at 6 months, but she's holding me, and I'm like looking, like little kids look with their eyes bugged out because I guess all these little flashes are going on, and then her homegirls are all around her, and then she's opening the gifts, holding me, and I remember as a child and as a teenager, I would ask like, "What is this? Like, why was it my birthday? It couldn't have been my birthday. Like, whatever. It wasn't your birthday. Like, why are we opening gifts?" And actually, to be honest with you, I don't remember my mom actually explaining it to me until I got older. And the way she explained it, she was so passive about it. Like, oh, that's just, my girlfriend surprising me with a baby shower because I got you or whatever. And I was like, oh, all right. Then, like, how my parents present this whole adoption thing, as you can see, that's why I'm passive about it. That's why I'm like nonchalant, like, whatever. It's a thing, but it's not a thing. But she never made a big deal out of it. Like, oh my God, this was the greatest day of my life. My girlfriends got together because I adopted you, and it was never a thing. She was like, oh, that's just something my homegirls did. Da, 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 da. But you took a lot of pictures of it, so it must have meant something to you. But she never brought it to my attention. Okay. That was special to her. That meant a lot that her homegirls did that. But my mom never made it a thing that I was adopted, nor did my father. Nobody in my family. Okay. So I need you guys to let me know to tell or not to tell. I'm not going to give you an answer. As an adopted person, I mean, if you ask, I'll tell you my opinion, but I really don't have an opinion because every situation is so drastically different. Every adoption is different. Every reasoning for adoption is different. Then there's an age thing that you have to consider. A child's mental state. There's so many things that factor into this. But what I can say is if you were one of those parents that don't want to tell the child that they are adopted, just understand, like the young kids say, life be life, and sometimes, and you got to be concerned about life popping its head up and addressing the topic for you. And what then I think you're going to cause more harm than good if you don't say anything and then they find out on their own. That's going to be traumatic. That's going to be devastating. It's going to be mad devastating, okay? But it may not be for everyone cuz some people feel like they're adopted anyway and they're actually right. Some people and I don't mean this in a negative way. I'm talking about all positive situations here, but some people just might have figured it out on their own, or like for example, like I'm 5'10", but my mom and dad are 5'2" and 5'3". So something like that might trigger somebody to be like, am I adopted? Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I've heard people say, well, you talk like your mom, you look like your dad. And, so height doesn't do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm overweight. My mother was overweight. Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But just keep that in mind. What do you do? Do you tell or do you not tell? Do you make this a family secret? Does it have to be a secret per se? Or is it just a non-factor? It's just a non-factor. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if your children, they love you, respect you, and all that, even if you never told them, I'm sure when you do tell them, they might be shocked and then they'll hear you out. But just be honest and be honest about why you didn't tell them. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. I don't care. You found out, yes, okay, baby, but you know what? Who cares? You're us and we are you. You know? I don't know. I'm gonna leave you on that note, y'all. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I'm mad curious. I'm mad curious. But anyway, I wish you guys the best. Again, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.